Your Excellency, Ambassador John Ash, President of the General Assembly, Mr. Kang Song-ju, Director General of the Convergence Policy, Ministry of Science, ICT and Future Planning, Republic of Korea, Ms. Jenny Nilsson, President of the Youth Section of the World Federation of the Deaf, Excellencies, distinguished guests, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. I'm delighted to join all of you at this special event to launch the Accessibility Center at the United Nations. I'm especially happy to welcome many persons with disabilities who have done so much to promote inclusivity at the United Nations and around the world. Thank you for your advocacy. I'm always with you in this cause. Yesterday was the International Day of Persons with Disabilities. Today, we prove that we care about this issue all year round. I thank our colleagues in the Department of Economic and Social Affairs, the Department of Public Information, the Department of General Assembly and Conference Management, and others who helped to establish the center. I'm especially grateful to the government of the Republic of Korea for the generous contribution that turned our vision for the center into a reality. One of the great features of this center is that its approach is not centralized. People can stop by and borrow state-of-the-art equipment and then leave to join their colleagues at different UN meetings. Of course, others may wish to recharge their wheelchairs at the center, or type with a palm-on keyboard, or take advantage of different services. But the result of all users is to integrate with the whole UN community. In fact, equipment from the center is not all located at the center. You can find the palm-on keyboards at other IT kiosks around the building. We are privileged to share this equipment to all who need it free of charge. All we ask in return is your involvement, your ideas, and your initiative. I have seen throughout my UN career persons with disabilities who make an enormous contribution to our global work on human rights and so much more, including peacefully settling disputes, advancing sustainable development, and establishing the rule of law. You can count on us to do everything possible to support your valuable work. And we count on you to keep pressing for progress on issues across the international agenda. The Accessibility Center is more than an example of inclusivity. It is a model of the digital United Nations we are trying to create. We are moving forward with the 21st century solutions that make the most of technological innovation. I'm confident that this center will be a great success. Our New York headquarters can inspire similar facilities around the world. Already, the Korean government has provided equipment to the ESCAP headquarters in Bangkok. I call on other countries to follow this lead. Today's event shows that we are making good on the promise of world leaders who met here 6 weeks ago for the high-level meeting on disability and development. I was encouraged by your strong resolve to join forces for disability inclusive development. I appreciated their pledge to advance the rights of all persons with disabilities. And I shared their conviction that this is deeply rooted in the United Nations Charter and our Universal Declaration of Human Rights. That is why I'm so pleased that the Accessibility Center and its services are now an integral part of our servicing of meetings and located at the heart of our conference building. This is a fitting for the place where we host the global dialogues on the major challenges facing our world. I hope that, like this Accessibility Center itself, the human rights of persons with disabilities will be front and center in our work as we see increased engagement and participation of persons with disabilities at the UN meetings. The United Nations has a special task force on accessibility, bringing together different departments to make our facilities and services accessible to everyone. Many of our recent meetings have been accessible. We are also making good progress towards a UN system-wide accessibility policy. But I will not be satisfied until we do even more. Fortunately, we have encouraging support from member states and civil society. I call on all governments, the United Nations system, and civil society to do even more for accessibility across the United Nations. Together, let's build a UN that is inclusive for all.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary General, and I now have the honor to invite His Excellency Ambassador John Ash, President of the 68th session of the General Assembly, to address the gathering. Mr. President.
Excellencies, Secretary General, Honorable Secretary General, Mr. Song Kang, Mr. Nixon, ladies and gentlemen, happily the Secretary General signed for both of us, so I don't need to repeat his gesture. Thank you very much. Good afternoon to one and all. I am pleased to be here today for today's inauguration of the UN Headquarters Accessibility Center, an important and positive step in creating a more welcoming and inclusive environment for all within the UN family. Let me begin by commending our Secretary General for leading these efforts to make the UN Secretariat accessible for all, and the Department of General Assembly and Conference Management for establishing this center. I also want to acknowledge the generous contribution and support of the government of the Republic of Korea. For far too long, and in far too many places, people with disabilities were treated as social outcasts. And in some cases, this is sadly still the case. In 2006, our General Assembly adopted a landmark human rights instrument, the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. Article 9 of the Convention calls on all state parties to take appropriate measures to ensure that persons with disabilities can access the physical environment, transportation, and information and communication technologies. As we just heard, yesterday we celebrated this important article during the International Day of Persons with Disabilities under the theme, Break Barriers, Open Doors for an Inclusive Society and Development for All. These global efforts to make the world more accessible to persons with disabilities must begin. And as the Accessibility Center demonstrates, are beginning right here in our own hallways. Both the General Assembly and the Human Rights Council have asked the Secretary General to implement standards and guidelines for the accessibility of facilities and services throughout the United Nations system. For if we are to build a more inclusive world, it is essential that persons with disabilities are able to fully participate in and contribute to our deliberations. To do so, they not only need to be able to access our meeting rooms, they also need to access information through documents and websites, that are designed to be accessible to all. Furthermore, they need assistive technologies such as screen readers, pointing devices, and hearing aids. By providing these tools and services, the Accessibility Center will be instrumental in building an inclusive United Nations. In this context, the opening of this center is of importance for several reasons. Firstly, it sends a signal from the highest levels to people around the world that people with disabilities can and must be brought into the mainstream of social and economic activity. Secondly, it reminds everyone that we value the contributions of persons with disability. Thirdly, it is an important step in broadening the democratic principle of inclusiveness, which affirms that all people have a space in this world and are born equal in dignity and rights. Finally, the provision of this space strengthens the principle in Agenda 21 that people are entitled to access information. As President of the General Assembly, I am committed to supporting the full participation of persons with disabilities in our intergovernmental processes. In this regard, I have begun to explore with the Department of General Assembly Affairs and Conference Management the possibility of producing the General Assembly verbatim records in a digital format accessible to the visually impaired. This will allow us to share the fruits of our deliberations with all, including those who cannot attend meetings. Ladies and gentlemen, the international community is opening a new chapter in development history, a chapter that must be based on equality, inclusion, and dignity for all. As we begin crafting the post-2015 development agenda, we must ensure that the voices of people with disabilities can be heard everywhere in our respective countries, as well as within the United Nations conference rules. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Would now like to invite Mr. Kang Song-Ju, the Director General of the Convergence Policy Bureau of the Ministry of Science, ICT and Future Planning, representing the government of the Republic of Korea. Mr. Kang.
Thank you. Your Excellency, Mr. Ban Ki-moon, Secretary General of the United Nations. Your Excellency, Mr. John Ash, President of the 68th Session of the United Nations General Assembly. Ms. Jenny Nilsson, President of the Youth Session of the World Federation of the Deaf. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. It is my sincere pleasure to welcome you to the new United Nations Accessibility Center. And it is indeed a great honor for the Republic of Korea to have taken part in its successful founding. The government of the Republic of Korea, along with the Ministry of Science, ICT and Future Planning, would like to thank Samsung Electronics, IMS International and other members of the private sector for their generous support. We would also like to thank the United Secretary General, His Excellency Mr. Ban Ki-moon, as well as the United Nations Interdepartmental Task Force on Accessibility for their tireless efforts in promoting a more inclusive organization. Ladies and gentlemen, the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, adopted in 2006, embraced an empowering perspective that approaches persons with disabilities as subjects with the rights and the freedom to make informed decisions. As the Convention recognizes, it is not necessarily the condition of the persons with a disability, but rather the presence of the environmental barriers that contributes the notion of the disability. The cutting-edge technology and assistive devices can lower these barriers and eliminate environmental obstacles that impede the fulfillment of rights and equal participation in society for those with disabilities. In this regard, I believe the Accessibility Center will play a crucial role in making the a noble cause of the Convention on the Rights of the Persons with Disabilities into reality by fostering fuller participation and promoting greater inclusiveness for persons with disabilities within the work of the United Nations. Ladies and gentlemen, the Korean government's contribution to the Center represents its sincere and long-standing commitment to advancing the rights of persons with disabilities, in particular through the use of innovative technologies. At home, the government of the Republic of Korea has provided ICT education to over 500,000 persons with disabilities to date since 1999. We have also provided assistive devices to nearly 42,000 persons with disabilities over the past decade. We hope to continue our work not only at home but abroad as well. Our contribution to the new center indicates our commitment to building a more disability inclusive global society. We look forward to continuing our work in partnership with the United Nations and other actors in promoting, protecting, and ensuring the rights of all persons with disabilities. Thank you very much.